This mouth-watering experience is present even in the absence of fragrances, right? So your mouth can water from fragrances, but it can also water from sights, which is why food adverts play so very much around dinner time. How many of y'all have had a whole bunch of KFC advertisements, lamp-based you back in the days of programmed television? So now these days everybody's on YouTube, and YouTube is international and operating across multiple time zones, and their adverts are based on when you click on a video. So the advertisements of food are just tend to lamp-based you at like proper 3 a.m. in the morning. Don't nobody care, you're full, you've already eaten your dinner. But there was a time during program television, you will remember, when you just had to like run to the bathroom because there's an advert. You couldn't pause, type establishment thing. During the good old sweet days of programmed television, around Nagoya generations, around the time of Mnet open time, you will remember how it is that they played so many adverts of like dinner, of food, like fast foods like pizza, debonaise and whatnot. A lot of this these adverts would tend to lamp-based you around dinner time, because that's when you are to be calling debonaise to deliver pizza for you, etc. But during the day, when you are watching cartoons at like 12 or 1 p.m. type setup thing, 2, 3 p.m., you just get regular like back to school adverts selling books, CNA, go buy your eraser, your Tipex and whatnot. It's because of the fact that they're trying to climb the bandwagon of the fact that you are very highly likely presently hungry, and so I'm gonna go and put adverts for food at this particular time. It's the miracle of God out you're causing you to salivate because you have memory of the fact that pizza smells like this, apples smell like this, what do you call this, like baked goods smell like this. And so just like Pavlov's dog, your behavior has been trained to make you salivate at just the mere sight of good food on a billboard, and make you drive to the KFC even though you can't smell it. So the combination of our senses train us over time to basically, we develop tastes, we evolve, right? But with babies, everything is based on their immediate reception of these stimuli coming into their ecosystem. What they see with their eyes, every last color of the rainbow is fascinating. What they eat in their mouths initially, babies initially will not necessarily notice the difference between a bad smell and a good smell until they have associated it with the mouth. A bad smell and a good smell, unless associated with the mouth, will not be gauged as good or bad. So basically, bad experiences by negative reinforcement wean a baby off from thinking certain things are edible. Hence why babies like to eat soil. Okay, they can't figure out the difference between fragrances that are just calming to inhale. They're calming to inhale. Like, I love the smell of, believe it or not, petrol. And I also love the smell of like when it's just rained. But I know that I can't drink petrol, even though it is cathartic for me to inhale the smell of petrol. And I also know that it's probably not going to do anything for me to eat soil, even though I like the smell of it. However, believe it or not, there are people in the black community that eat amaje. My aunt was one of them. Like, they would sell stones. It's like, I don't know what to call it. It's an addiction of sorts. Like, I used to love it as well as a kid, like chalk as well, right? Eating chalk. It could have nutritional value because chalk is calcium carbonate, so you could actually be reinforcing your bones, but it's not food. You are better off just drinking milk if you want calcium. But you eat chalk because it's just this like acquired taste, and it smells a particular way, so it draws you. It draws you to eat it. And even then, you don't eat red chalk because it has dye in it that tastes a particular way. You don't eat green chalk. It tends to be white chalk, that it's pure calcium carbonate with no additives. That it really like goes down beautiful. Like, you all know, that's why teachers used to take their chalk when they left the class, because like chalk is just so edible. Type establishment thing. I guess if your child has a calcium deficiency, you can let them eat chalk at their leisure. But like I said, it's better for them to have milk. But us coming to a point of realizing that certain smells are not to be affiliated with eating them, takes time. Babies develop this over time, and that's why it's important to protect them from everything that they can smell that smells nice, that they then put in their mouth. Like perfume smells nice, but you can't drink it, right? Just like petrol. I personally like the smell of petrol, but I know I can't drink it. It can kill me. Kids have to be trained that yes, it smells good, but you can't eat it. But in the beginning, they're in an oral phase where they're just eating everything that smells good in their mouths. And they also cannot, in the very beginning, like as infant, like fresh out of their mama's wombs, babies cannot tell the difference between a bad smell and a good smell until bad smells basically wreak havoc in their lives. Like the smell of sour milk will not cause babies to reject it until that sour milk has given them a stomach ache. Then they can tell. Then once they're at a certain age, they can then smell stuff and be like, this is not good to eat. I don't want this milk because historically it's given me an experience of a stomach ache or diarrhea. They poop in their pants and only you can tell that something's up, but they don't smell themselves as nasty. Babies, when they've pooped, if you are a responsible parent and you change their diaper on time, they're not gonna cry. You gotta figure it out yourself. You gotta figure it out that, okay, this baby is not good. Unless, of course, they are swimming in so much feces that they're uncomfortable and they're getting rash. They'll just swim in those feces and have no qualms until you stank them up, until you smell that, what's going on? It's a tsunami in these streets, right? So their affiliation of bad smells with inconsumability comes later. Do you understand what I'm saying? So they eat to pleasure themselves. Realize that eating gives pleasure, but that certain kinds of other eating doesn't, because it causes stomach aches and whatnot. They see all the colors, they love them, so their rooms, albeit your house having gray couches, the baby room will be pink and blue and purple and red and yellow and orange, because they got to see all these things. What they see as, well, they like motion, they like to see things moving, so their decorations tend to be moving around all over the show. They enjoy that. A lot of moving stuff that rattles. They like it's training up their ears, and they also love the sound of all things. Stuff that they taste. Initially, I guess the babies cannot eat just anything. It has to be breast milk or formula, depending really on the circumstance. But over time, they develop a taste for solids and the sweets. They because they love sweets, even though it's not really good for their teeth, because it's sweet. It's sweet. It's so delicious. It is so absolutely delicious, and so they prefer it. And very extremely pungent taste. Pungent foodstuffs, they love them. Like stuff that is high salt content, high spice content, just unhealthy foods that are, however, absolutely decadent. They love them. They love takeout, fast foods, steers, whatnot, ice cream. Fattening stuff, they love it, but bland stuff that basically is it's kind of bitter. Either it's bitter on the tongue, or it's tasteless altogether, like cabbage, like Brussels sprouts, whatever. It's like, what is this adding to my piece? It's doing nothing for me. There's no purpose to me eating this because it tastes like either nothing or it's bitter. It's not sweet, and it's also not super salty. But I know that as a child, I developed a love for vegetables because my mom figured out a way to cook them in a way that was so tasty. So tasty and so poignant, like so rich in taste, that I ended up enjoying it. She used to add cheese to broccoli and cauliflower, so I enjoyed it, like cheese sauce. So I enjoyed the veggies. She didn't merely steam them and then sprinkle a little bit of salt here and there. She did not merely boil them. She killed it, okay? See, she switched it up. My mother was the queen of switch up when it came to veggies. So I basically grew to love vegetables because my mom was good at them. But I had been to many a misebenzi as a black girl, many a wedding as a black girl, many a funeral as a black girl, where this is not cabbage, what is this? It's raba, I don't know, this is not chicken, what is it? Types it up things. So the tastes that were established in my mouth was because my mother made them very pungent. But that's the thing, right? Kids must taste harshly on their tongue to love or hate something. they've got to see harshly in their eyes to love or hate something. So they've got to see bright, harsh colors. They've also got to taste certain, smell certain things, touch certain things. Now, reception of entertainment, which, like I spoke all that to get to this point. Reception of entertainment. The reason why kiddies' entertainment is the way that it is, like, I don't even know who figured this stuff out, but they figured it out. Okay, humanity is like, it's written in God's word that the glory of man is to conceal a matter. Sorry, the glory of God is to conceal a matter, and the glory of kings is to search it out. So the glory of mankind is to search out that which God has hidden. So the glory of God is appreciated by children, by babies, and God is a creator, right? And God is eternal, and there are things that are harsh to the human spirit to receive. Things like death. All right, things like dullness and macabre are not good. There is a utopia that is created by cartoons that is the stuff of heaven, but without the gospel. And that's why some of them are problematic, not all of them, okay? I mean, I'm good with a kid watching good old-fashioned Tom and Jerry, but there are certain kinds of kiddies' entertainment that I personally would not want my kid watching, so it would have to be very regulated television. It can't even be television per se where they can surf. It would have to be entertainment chosen by me. Basically, I'd have to approve a cartoon. Like, I could let my kids watch Doug. Like, I used to love Doug back in the day. Ooh, Doug! And there was Patty Mayonnaise, who actually had a crush on Doug and whatnot, but there was nothing licentious about it. It was kind of realistic, even though it was, what is this, like cartoons? I could let my kids watch Recess. I could let my kids watch Recess. I could let my kids watch Recess. What other cartoon would I allow? Hey, hey, hey! It's Fat Albert. Na na na, Riamorata. I could let my kids watch Fat Albert. Listen, there are certain shows that I would allow my kids to watch, like Popeye. I could let my kids watch Popeye. And what is this? Getting Olive actually getting rescued every time by Popeye eating spinach. I could, like, look, I would have to choose the entertainment, even if it's secular, for my kids to watch, because not all secular entertainment is damaging to the brain, right? But these magic shows, I'm sorry, like, they're scathing, y'all. They're an escape. So just in terms of the creation of cartoons, God is a creator, and he made little cartoons on earth called human beings, okay? We are made in his image. And so cartoons are made also in our image. They're made to look like human beings. And then there is the personification of animals, which is not so problematic insofar as the kids are made to understand that animals can't talk, etc. Right? Look, there are limits as to what you can let kids watch. I'm all for the personification of animals. Look, okay, God is a creator. We are creators too, but of course lesser than God. And that which God created is for our benefit, our enjoyment, our betterment, and also our punishment. So because children are born humans, and so therefore for adversity, with pain everywhere that they need to relieve, and pleasure that they need to seek out to acquire, necessarily then, in order to keep kids going, to entertain them, their entertainment has to be different. It has to be very ornate, shiny, in comparison, like basically ostentatious, just clamorous. It has to be a lot more animated, like proper. There's no better word. Like, it's the right word, hence why it's called animation. But it has to be a lot more animated in order for them to catch on to it, because kids need fireworks displays in order to learn. Okay, they need very bold everything, bold numbers, bold letters, whole numbers, not fractions. They need bold stuff to learn, like flashing them with cue cards that are yellow, pink, and blue and red, right? They need boldness. So you can't really teach a kid much without boldening things. So regular instruction like that, which you would gain at university with just some boring lecturer, is not enough to keep a kid paying attention in class. Like when a lecturer is out, you're teaching you differential calculus at varsity, a grown man or woman, an adult, would responsibly write out that under normal circumstances very boring lecture because they know it's for their own benefit, and so therefore foster what is called concentration. But concentration for kids does not come easily. concentration for children comes through a show, like a fireworks display. They need lots of color, hence why even in creches they learn with so much color, so much boldness, so much bigness. Like everything is just huge. The square is big, the square, what do you call this, the circle is big, the triangle is big, and it fits into this like big hole. This round hole fits into this big round peg. Like everything is big and bold and colorful. The 2 is huge, but a small little 2 on a piece of paper, this kid is not going to look at it. Kids need bold stuff that is also very showy, ornate, and exaggerated. That is the word actually that I was looking for. They need exaggerated stimuli in order to learn. So cartoons are exaggerations of human activity. They do things that we do, but exaggerated in order that kids might learn from them. So I'm not against cartoons because they teach kids human behavior in exaggerated form, because that's how kids learn anyway. If you're going to teach a child how to draw a triangle, you have to show them a giant triangle in the sky, a blue one that's maybe even changing color every 3 seconds. That's how they're going to learn how the shape of a triangle and how to draw one. They need boldness. So the boldness or the extremity of cartoon characters is necessary to train kids human behavior, and how human beings also respond to certain stimuli, right? But because they're so instructional and so educational, it is also therefore important to restrict what cartoon content they bring in, or even fairy tale content that they bring in. Hence why fairy tales are so attractive to kids. First and foremost, they love colors and they want a pleasure utopia, or a place where that which is evil and nefarious ultimately gets dealt with at the end of the day, right? The way in which they can deal with the angst or the confusion of an evil world is to escape to a supernatural being that, in the grander scheme of things, got this, right? Kids need a sense of God, essentially. But fairy tales give them a wrong God. So in a Christian household where a kid is actually reading fairy tales is problematic, although it's also kind of problematic for a child not to know the Cinderella fairy tale. You get my point. Like, they kind of have to know stuff, but they also have to know that this is not right. It should not be educated them as normal fact or entertainment, but as just lessons, right? I would not want my children to not know fairy tales, because then they would be... It's written in God's word that even though we're in the world, we're not of it. You cannot absolve yourself from certain knowledge of Earth's affairs and Earth's anecdotes. Earth's, what is the word that I'm looking for? Earth's idioms, Earth's phrases, Earth's catch phrases, Earth's ebbs and flows and nuances. You cannot raise a child in some cocoon where they don't know, basically in the spirit of protecting them, things that everyone on earth typically knows by a certain age. It's just wrong. It's plain wrong, and it's making them an ignoramus that is not going to be able to relate with society, and so therefore successfully be an apologist in it, against the flow of the world in favor of attachment to heaven. So it is important for kids to know fairy tales. They gotta know them. But what's imperative about learning a certain space is essentially the context from which you are learning it, right? If kids understand fairy tales from a vantage point of them being just sheer diabolical, they will have the right viewpoint of the world. They have to know that they're evil. They've got to be educated fairy tales in the same way that we as Christians educate people on the dangers of witchcraft. It's not that we are absent of knowledge as to how the things of the kingdom of darkness works. It's that we are making it clear that they're evil and that people should not touch them. That is the very basis of knowledge. It is to disseminate it and refashion it in a way that is responsible in order to create a viewpoint of the world. It's written in God's word in the book of Daniel that in the last days there's going to be a knowledge boom, right? An information age. We're in it now. Right? But it's also written in God's word that you must study to show yourself approved. And that test the spirits, for not every spirit that comes is coming in the name of Jesus Christ. That we must be Berean, and that when we are trained certain stuff, essentially go back to the scriptures to confirm it or validate it against the word of God. So it's not about avoiding certain information or certain knowledge, but about understanding its context, where it fits in, and what its potential dangers are. It is to recognize that it is a fallacy to run with witchcraft as a solution as opposed to God. But to know that witchcraft exists is life-saving. That's why it's written in God's word that we are not unaware of the devil's schemes. So I would not want my child or children to not know what Cinderella is about, but they gotta understand that the world does not operate like that, because then they're gonna be scared of the devil, for crying out loud, given that there is no fairy godmother that's actually truly beneficial to a child on this side of life. Yeah, anyway, so in going back then to speaking about cartoons, they're exaggerated forms of human existence, right? So because they are entertainment, they have got an ability to create a chemical spike in our body that is pleasure awarding, dopamine, serotonin, to relieve us of the bustles and the woes and the pains of the earth, and to also give us a sense of reward at the end of a hard working day. Entertainment, as you would agree, that's why it's called entertainment, right? Is this thing that you can get enveloped in for hours without taking even a bathroom break, unfettered by how long you've been sitting on a couch. Even though you can't do the same thing when you are at work. You're also sitting in front of a screen at work, yet you can't wait to get this done with. You can't wait to go home. You can't wait for 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. And yet you can sit in front of Netflix all Sunday, all Saturday, without feeling the need to get out. You don't feel rushed to go through a movie, and yet you feel rushed to go through minutes of the meeting. It is the exact same sort of kind of activity, and yet the one awards you so much pleasure. It gives you such a release of dopamine, endorphins in your body, basically serotonin, that you can do it all day and every day, right? Because it's pain relieving and pleasure seeking, it necessarily must also therefore be restricted, because it can create slovenliness, laziness, especially considering it does not award bread at the end of the day. It's written in God's word that a little sleep and a little slumber and a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will overwhelm you like an armed man, and scarcity like a bandit. It's also written in the Lord's word that as a door turns on its hinges, so too does a man turn on his bed. A lazy man turn on his bed. So to sit in front of TV all day is problematic, even though it is pain relieving, serotonin releasing, dopamine releasing, and so escapee, successful to help you escape from the toils of this world, that you might gain relief from the stresses of day-to-day bustling life, right? But escapism is not necessarily healthy if at all it is not in, little pockets of reprieve. If it's not in little pockets of reprieve, like an athlete running the comrades marathon after being given a squishy of water, if it's not like that, if entertainment is not received like a squishy during the comrades marathon, it will rot you as a human being, right? Because it's only pleasure without work. While the Lord gave us instruction in his word that we must work by the sweat of our brow, right? In order to eat. It's also written in the Acts of the Apostles that if anybody does not want to work, let them not eat. So God is not against entertainment or consuming of that which awards you reprieve, because at the end of the day, this world is full of striving, and if you don't find an escape, if you don't find something to balance out that which is cortisol hormone releasing in your body, out of that which is stress inducing, if you don't find reprieve from stress inducers, you will burn out. In a world that is so full of evil, you need something to recline your chair. You need something to fall back on. And entertainment has that power. But entertainment without godliness, entertainment without regulation, and entertainment without moderation is putrefying. You know that saying, too much of a good thing is bad, essentially, right? Yeah, that's what's good. Well, so then children come to learn that cartoons are entertaining because, as opposed to, for instance, think about reading a book, right? Reading a good book, like a page turner, or even watching a movie from beginning to end. It's 2 hours long, right? Or 3 hours long. A page turning book, you can read it over a couple of days. If it's really that page turning, you can finish a 500-page book like in a good 5 days if you can't like put it down. Type establishment thing. Yeah. And remember the plot of the whole book and characters in that show by name, what they did, where they went, like to a point where you can almost verbatim tell the story. The fact that it is so easy for you to learn a movie from start to finish. When I was a teenager, I used to love the movie Clueless. I make mention of that a lot, right? I used to love the movie Clueless to a point of verbatim knowing the whole script from the beginning. He does love to shop share, and the boy can dress. You're a virgin who can't drive. That's Ty speaking to Cher. I used to know verbatim the script of Clueless. Not all of it anymore. I've forgotten it, right? How in the world does somebody learn the script of a movie 2 hours long verbatim, right? I watched it over and over and over and over again a lot of times. But even if I hadn't watched Clueless a lot of times, there are certain phrases that popped out. There are certain phrases that popped out that I wouldn't remember even from just watching it once. When you are intrigued and interested in something, that whole release of chemicals in your body, that is, those pleasure chemicals in your body, can cause you to latch onto information to a point of not even needing confabulation anymore. You don't need to fill in the gaps because you caught the whole point. You got the whole plot because you were watching a Van Damme special and it was so entertaining that you can go to school the next day and say, and then he did this, and then he did that, did you see, same kid, about yesterday's little show that was 45 minutes long. Watch them be given a spot test from reading one page that has 4 paragraphs on it, and then the teacher give them half an hour let's say an hour. The teacher give them an hour to read this one page, and then ask them to do a comprehension test in English. And watch this little bugger. How'd you get 25%? How'd you get 40%? How'd you scrape barely passing at 50%? And yet you're able to be like, and then Van Damme did this, and then Dompa, and then you are able to remember every detail of a movie that you watched once that is 3 hours long, and yet your teacher gives you 4 paragraphs to read over and over again for an hour, following which you then write a spot test in comprehension, go English. And you cannot paraphrase much of what was written in there. You can't remember the names of the characters in the little story. You cannot remember the details, whether or not it was blue or green. The chair that the little girl sat in. You can't remember it. Why? Because there is no dopamine or serotonin. There is no pleasure being released into your body, causing you therefore to stick onto information, causing you to remember everything because it was that entertaining for you. It's not entertainment for you to study. It is an onerous, tiresome process that you feel like it's work, man. And because we are born dead in trespasses and sins and are inherently lazy, our learning abilities are strangely, what is the word that I'm looking for? Selective. Yes, our learning abilities are selective. It's like selective amnesia, like choosing what to remember and choosing what not to remember, to a point of filling in the gaps by confabulation. Academic content, right? In a way that you just don't need to confabulate when you're dealing with entertainment. Similarly too, when you've had horrific experiences in history, you can suppress them and struggle therefore to recall them, or confabulate or make up basically stories to fill in the gaps where there was too much trauma for you to successfully remember the full story, because there is no pleasure released in all that trauma. There is no pleasure released in all that trauma. So because there's no pleasure, it's difficult to remember every last moment, all right, of it all. You struggle to remember everything of the whole thing because it did not bring you much pleasure or much joy, much peace, type establishment thing. right? So if you can read and recite every last like storyline and conclusion and a thing that came out at you, a catchphrase that really punched you of a novel of which is like a good 500 pages, and you struggle to study 5 chapters, 4 chapters, 3 chapters for a test and an exam, given you read that novel over 5 days and remembered everything, but the teacher at school gives you 4 chapters to study, each chapter of which is 10 pages, so it's 40 pages of likely even bolder print, bolder writing than in the novel that's like tiny like that, Arial font 10 in a novel, whereas in the textbook it's Times New Roman font 14, maybe even 16, okay, let's say 14 to not be too exaggerated, with colors if it's a physics textbook, and you will struggle, albeit, let's not even say physics, because maybe the complexity of the mathematics alongside the concepts that are rough to grasp could hinder you from understanding. So let's just say an English textbook or an Afrikaans textbook, like basically a biology, basically something that's theory only. It's just basic communication of human experiences with colors, graphics, and everything. Like 40 pages versus a 500-page novel that you read over a week, 5 days, with smaller font. The difficulty for you to pass that test and the number of iterations that you have to go through, basically like memorizing so you can regurgitate, versus, I mean, you don't have to read a chapter of a novel twice or 3 times to understand what happened in that chapter. It's just once and you just keep going, and you remember everything. But with a study, what like a textbook, yeah, English, 4 mere chapters of 40 pages are going to be so rough to grasp, and you have to repeatedly read each chapter multiple times, even memorizing it, speaking it out loud, creating mnemonic cues, like an acronym, like the acronym, yeah, the rainbow, ROIG BIV. That's how I now today still know it. Okay, red, orange, yellow, blue, indigo, and violet. I only know it still to this day because I created a mnemonic when I was in school called ROIG BIV, right? And this mnemonic enables me to recall knowledge, but I don't need a mnemonic to remember largely the plot of the movie, of the book, The Power of a Praying Woman. I don't need mnemonic cues to remember the plot in the book Eat, Pray, Love, because I read that before I came to Christ. I don't need a mnemonic to remember what was written in the book Animal Farm, George Orwell, when I was in school, or even the Waif. I don't need basically when books, right, novels, stories, Romeo and Juliet, I don't really need a mnemonic to remember much of the content they're in. Over time, some of the information does elude me because time tends to erase some information, right? Unless something was so dear and near to you and also is a subject matter expertise that you carry into the future, that you hold fast to knowledge. But otherwise, knowledge tends to seep through the cracks if you don't keep on reinventing yourself in it, if you don't keep on going back to the drawing board concerning it. If it does not become your speciality, there is no need for you to hold on to that information, right? So much of the stuff that you learned, you can forget it, but at the time newly that of you reading a certain book, you tend to remember every last detail therein, right? Because it's entertainment and it's euphoric, it's cathartic for you to read that book, whereas it's not cathartic to study 3 chapters of a psychology textbook, unless of course it is your particular catharsis, you know, unless you are that weird little beefy nerd that proper out here finding entertainment out of like physics, out of neuroscience, out of like, you get my point, right? You find it to be entertaining to just study a whole entire like differential calculus textbook because you that nerd person. But most of us aren't nerds. I'm not that kind of nerd. Okay, yeah. Most of us aren't nerds, and so because most of us aren't nerds, we don't find entertainment out of textbooks from school. It is onerous. It is the work of work. It is the stuff of work, and because it's work, it is a judgment from God, We work by the sweat of our brow, and because it's a judgment, it is a striving. It is something that is done with great difficulty. It is not leisure, it's not entertainment, it is not a relief of pain. It is rather an inducer of pain, an inducer, a stimulator of cortisol in our bones, and it causes us stress. And so therefore it is not done very easily because we're sinners. It's not done easily because we are sinners. So therefore, children, when it comes to cartoons versus school, right, it's rough for them to what you call this, they'll become like little adults that way. It is rough for them to stay concentrating in school, even kids with ADHD, like a severity of ADHD. Even children with a severity of ADHD can sit quiet in front of a cartoon for 2 hours, in front of a series of cartoons for 2 hours. And so I can understand why some parents feel like they need to go and buy DVDs of a certain cartoon to handle their children. I can understand it, because it can really keep your kids quiet while you clean, while you cook, while you whatever. It helps. It does. But while I am not against seeking out the help of entertainment to keep your kids busy, it is imperative to give them context concerning this entertainment. And also it is imperative for you to regulate what they consume, because there is some entertainment that's absolutely irresponsible to let kids consume. Even if there is no, of course, anything offensive to kids, even if it's family rated and whatnot, there are certain shows that children should not be watching for the sake of entertainment value. Like lots of these magic shows, Wizard of Waverly Place and whatnot. There are certain shows that kids should not be allowed to watch at all. But there are certain shows that you can also allow them to watch, however, with context, with a prior understanding giving them, and what have you. So by all means, like proper, handle your ADHD child with entertainment, because it is stilling. But there needs to be context to it, right? But you see, the serotonin that is released in entertainment that does not quite exist in academic instruction, because that's the stuff that we need to do in order to one day ultimately have things called careers and what have you. The serotonin that is released, the pleasure that kids gain out of that. It is just like with us, an escape. It's an escape, but escapism without moderation is problematic, remember. And escapism without escapism without moderation is problematic, and escapism without context to that which a person is escaping into is also problematic. Without prior knowledge, instruction, without caveats and terms and conditions is problematic. If a person does not go in knowing what they're getting into, they're going to come out baked like a satanic dough. And it's going to be really hard to uproot rubbish out of that kid, right? So children do escape through lots of colors, playing on playgrounds, and children also do escape from consuming cartoons, entertainment. It's their way of dealing with the fact that the world is kind of dark. It's cruel, okay? Kids in school are cruel sometimes. Teachers can be harsher than normal. Actually abusing your kids outside of your consent without you really knowing, because verbal abuse alongside psychological abuse is hard to detect in a child until it's done like a whole chunk of damage, right? Because physical abuse is much easier to find, because there's like a whole whammied hand, like a 5 finger on your child's shoulder, then that's something you can deal with. But mental and psychological harassment, child is just not going to manifest this until it's too late. It's like cancer. Unless you detect it early, the damage is done too hectically. So you got to teach children independence in terms of God, like just fellowshipping with the Father alone by themselves, so that they can have a sense of God. Like kids need a sense of God. Anyway, like I said, let's move right back, right? Necessary is this television for children, or these books, these these things that they draw, coloring books. They're necessary for children, okay? Absolutely 100% necessary. It enables them to escape, and they enjoy it more than just studying 1 + 1 = 2 and triangles. Yeah, okay, cool. It's necessary for them to consume this stuff, and it is an escape. That's the thing I'm trying to get at. It's pleasure creating or pleasure relieving. Sorry, it is pleasure creating or pain relieving. All right, and they need this pain relief because of bullying at school, because of mean teachers, because even of their disagreement with your parenting style, because of you and your husband fighting, because of you denying them what they want, like, I want a toy, I want this, I want that, feeling misunderstood by you, whatever you might be doing to them, absent of your knowledge, like whatever damage you might be causing, even some of the most godliest and baddest parents in the game, drop a ball somewhere, because hurt people, it's a whole bunch of sinners trying to survive on earth where they're auditioning for heaven. So you can damage a child unbeknownst to yourself as a parent, albeit having told yourself that I will always be this great parent that I wasn't, that my mother wasn't, or that my daddy wasn't, right? They gotta be taught how to cope in a world where, frankly, it's every man for himself. Yeah, they gotta be trained, they gotta be educated, they gotta be instructed, these little souls. Very, very well. Okay, having put that out there and just throwing it like, a bit of a curveball, it must also be comprehended that where you allow these kids to escape is going to create a canyon, an abyss, a void. If at all, suddenly, you gotta divorce these human individuals, or they gotta divorce themselves from this escape route. There will be a void, and just like pea shooters during substitution class where they're not learning mathematics, as I spoke earlier, they will find something else to replace it with. They're going to fill that hole, they're going to fill that cavity, and it's going to be problematic how they fill it, because you allowed them escapism without context, without prior training, instruction, and you also allowed them unfettered escapism in that it had it had no restriction, no limit. It was just used as a means for you to get time to do your minutes of the meeting at home while your child does not bother you. Teenagers are largely self-regulated in a way that parents don't feel like they need to watch them, hence why teenage girls, maybe even boys sometimes, but I wouldn't trust a teenage boy with my kids, especially if they're girls, because they're hormonal type thing. But they can be nannies, they can be nannies, they can take care of your little baby or your toddlers and what have you. They're regulated teenagers, self-regulated teenagers, because they've grown up, right? They've become somewhat little mini adults, but within this self-regulation is a divorcement from that which they were unable to escape through as toddlers, as preteens, as little infants. And this void is going to be filled by filth. Do you understand? If it is not from a very early age trained up in children to be godly, teach a child in the way that they should go, and when they're older they will not depart from it. It's written in God's word. In the heart of a child dwells a great deal of folly, but the rod of discipline drives it away from him. It is written also in God's word. It is imperative to realize that in the spirit of giving yourself time to type minutes at work, you cannot just let kids watch anything. All right? And that cartoons are not always innocuous. Anyway, like I said, let's go back to this. Cartoons, they're entertaining, and so they release serotonin. They calm down even kids with ADHD, and they are exaggerated. And so they train children humanity, how the human race operates, in a very exaggerated fashion. Thank God we've got these recalibrators in most of us anyway, to help kids understand that this is not reality. That Popeye, upon eating spinach and getting fat muscles, is not really getting fat. That you can't do that in waking life and actually really truly get thick muscles. We can take that for granted in most children, but there are extreme cases of kids that have actually taken cartoons seriously to a point of jumping off buildings and expecting that they're going to get stars on their heads. But then they die, right? Like, there's been extreme cases like those, but largely God regulates the human race such that kids get that this is a cartoon, and that something dangerous in waking life is something not so dangerous in a cartoon, a kiddie's show, could be dangerous in waking life. So they are ideal to train people, to train children. And they are colorful, so kids are able to find them. They release a whole bunch of pleasure in their bodies. They're able to orala it like a heater for a long amount of time. Remember every last detail they're in. Hence why sometimes it's so easy to teach children using Bugs Bunny or Galooby is a dragon, a very friendly dragon. My name is Galooby and I'd like to be your... My name is Galubi and I'd like to be your friend. Or take a back up, I get a cramp in my cheek and my knees go weak. My shell gets so heavy I can hardly speak. I don't know what to do. I haven't got a clue. I don't know what to do. I mean, even the Half of Sorrow by Timothy Treadle, who is a giant turtle, is an exaggeration of how when you're tired you are as a person, right? You're like, ugh, I'm so tired. But Timothy Treadle is like, and then when he's happy, I wiggle and I waggle and I giggle and I gaggle. I dance around, I'm king of the road, but I don't jump like a toad. Boing, 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 ha, sha, 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 sha. Right? When you're happy, you're just like, yeah. As like a grown woman, right? Or a grown man. But Timothy Treadle is like, ha, sha, 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 sha. It is imperative for kids to understand that, because that which is exaggerated in cartoon characters and mascot, suit wearing, grown people that are to look like tortoises and bucks and bunnies can teach them appropriate human responses to certain stimuli, right? Yeah. So it's nice to teach children 1 + 1 = 2 in a mascot suit. And what have you. But like I said, these serotonin inducing and dopamine inducing pleasures, if not properly regulated, will literally rot teenagers unbeknownst to what you did wrong. You are just telling yourself as a parent that, but I took them to church and I tried to train them up in the admonition of the Lord. They were always in Sunday school. We were always reading the Bible. Why is my child deconstructing Christianity? Why is my kid deconstructing Christianity now that they're 14, now that they're 15, now that they're 16? Pea shooting. So when you put a child in front of Cinderella, and without the context, and without the limitation of escapism, you let these kids experience a spiritual euphoria where they are escaping from the troubles of this world. In order to enable children to feel, lots of parents believe, like it's okay for them to lose a tooth, in order to comfort them in their tooth losing process, that they're going to get money from the tooth fairy. You are creating a fantasy in them that is an escapist route for pain. You're making your child escape the route. You're making your child escape the pain of tooth loss. All right? To make them quickly just get rid of that tooth. Just like, yeah, it's out there moving. And then to just help them along to just take it out. You then tell them the tooth fairy, so that the pain of tooth loss will be alleviated by the pleasure of a fantasy called the tooth fairy. You then put 10 rand or 50 rand over there on some, oh, little baby, the tooth fairy gave you 50 bucks. And then they grow up and they realize that there is no tooth fairy. Or even Santa Claus. Out here giving children gifts on Christmas. But then they turn 14 and 15. They turn even 12. And now you're giving them a gift? Now you're the one. It's from dad. It's from mom. It's from Pinky. It's from Auntie Leonard. So Uncle Leonard. And it's from Auntie Lexi. What happened to Santa? Okay, I know. Santa, he's not real. But you see, the escapism that comes from certain fairy tale beliefs cannot be easily escaped and replaced with Auntie Lexi and Uncle Leonard giving them a Christmas present. Santa Claus gets replaced by mom, dad, and older sister and big brother. That is a maintenance of pleasure, right? But where is the fairy godmother when it comes to a child's deepest sorrows? Where is the fairy godmother when it comes to a child's deepest secrets that they don't even confess to you? Things that are happening to their bodies that they are ashamed to let you know. That they are nervous to communicate to you. Where is the person to whom they communicate? So Santa is easily replaced by mom and dad and Uncle Leonard. But the fairy godmother who rocks up in the climate of a child's abused life. The fairy godmother who comes through for a bullied child in school. The fairy godmother who understands the child in a way that the parents just can't. Where is she? It's not Uncle Leonard, and it's not Auntie Lexi. It is also not mom or dad or big brother or big sister. It's a void. It's a canyon. It's an abyss. It is this gone fantasy land that I know now for a fact is not real. They learned using colors because they were close to God. And then they get to an age where they start to become grunge, gothic, because they are deconstructing the world of color that they come from. God is used to train children how to embrace the human race, but without acknowledging that it's God. That's what the human race always does. It's like the Nebuchadnezzar phenomenon. We shall call it the Nebuchadnezzar phenomenon. Let's call it the Nebuchadnezzar phenomenon. Nebuchadnezzar is this guy that was a king in Babylon. And one time he was on his terrace looking at his amazing Babylon. And he was like, whoa, I did it. Can't nobody move. I'm like, MC Hammer, I can't touch this. Da, 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 da. I did this. I built Babylon. Please, don't nobody give me problems. An angel of God walked up and was like, yeah, because you have not acknowledged God for all the glory that he awarded you to build this world, this land of yours. You're going to eat grass for 7 years. You're going to be made like a beast. And immediately he was transformed into a beast. Scrawny, crawled up on the ground eating grass for 7 years. Like nails the size of true beasts, fangs maybe in his mouth, and even crawly toes. And only after 7 years he was restored to sensibility again. And the first thing he said was, the nations of this world are accounted as nothing before God. No one can speak and have it happen unless no one can say to God, what have you done? He said, the nations of this world are accounted as nothing before God. No one can say to him, Wenzeni. No one can say to him, what have you done? So basically Nebuchadnezzar realized that your own human effort had nothing to do with how grandiose your Babylon is. It was God that enabled you alone, by providence, to build this empire. And only once he acknowledged this was he then awarded grander glory than he had prior. Alright? That was the story of Nebuchadnezzar. Kids endure, not kids, but the world, have a Nebuchadnezzar phenomenon. They endure a Nebuchadnezzar syndrome. In the sense that they are out here using God to train the world how to be. And yet they don't give him glory. Human beings have built entire civilizations on nothing but trial and error. We have built cities, skyscrapers, and education systems, structures to instruct children up, to grow up to be responsible adults, serving in citizens, to be law-abiding citizens.